Regardless of how many video game genres you embrace, there will always be at least a few that escape your attention, whether it's an unconscious selection or not. Personally, one such genre I rarely gravitated towards is horror, simply because I dislike being scared. Yet I found myself strangely drawn to the highly anticipated Silent Hill F, a hopeful continuation in form for the series following the success of the Silent Hill 2 remake. Besides offhandedly listening to franchise retrospectives and hearing about it in passing conversation, I know almost nothing about Silent Hill. Even the inclusion of the famed Ryukishi07 and his team, known for the kinetic novels Higurashi and Umineko, isn't what necessarily compelled me towards Silent Hill F, as neat as his collaboration is. There was just this abstract, distinct ambiance permeating throughout Silent Hill F since its announcement that drew me, alongside its lack of gunplay, prompting me to give it a go as one of my few forays into this simultaneously layered genre and series. Now, on the other end, I'm positive this tale's execution will stick with me for innumerable years.
Shu, where are you?
What is it, partner?
Everything that's happening to us. Do you think it could be some dream we're having? Because we just want to keep playing Space Wars together?
Silent Hill F follows protagonist Shimizu Hinako, a teenager residing in the highly remote town of Ebisugaoka during 1960s Japan. Her life, equally mundane and dreadful, takes a disturbed turn after enduring a typical severe argument with her father. When escaping the stifling status quo of her home and lounging with her classmates, an ominous fog overtakes the scenery. Once the fog rolls in, suddenly otherworldly monstrosities roam the town, and almost every citizen suddenly vanishes. Making matters even more abnormal is Hinako's apparent drifting elsewhere when she falls unconscious, to the home of a certain man wearing a fox mask. Hinako, despite appearing detached and repressed due to societal expectations and familial strife, harbors much more within. Her characterization requires time to grasp fully, and the in-game journal is essential to understanding her. Besides housing tutorials, maps, and the like, this resource often contains character profiles and terminology accounts penned by Hinako herself, illustrating a mix of fact and personal perception. She's a fascinating lead whose plights are awkward to convey without stepping into spoiler territory. Still, the gradual intrigue that I unconsciously formed the longer I played as her was consistently present. Her journal entries only enhanced that innate interest as well. One writing choice I wasn't too sure about when beginning Silent Hill F was how its cast was being handled. You get little time to familiarize yourself with the status quo between Hinako and the others, notably her childhood friend and partner, Shu, her continually jealous classmate Rinko, and her ditzy friend Sakuko. Their veil of understanding and acceptance is rapidly encroached upon by the supernatural, which left me wondering about how I was supposed to feel about these interconnected relationships. However, the core narrative and accompanying optional material do a satisfactory, if not perfect, job at establishing and selling the history between these characters. It's remarkably effective, even if it doesn't wholly replace the strengths of spending gradual time with the cast proper, like another of Ryukishi07’s works, Higurashi. Silent Hill F doesn't have that luxury, yet it illustrates not needing that built-up framework outright. The tension, anxiety, and desperation emitting from this cast are evident, whether subdued or not. Speaking of, Silent Hill F unsurprisingly and unabashedly thrives in its ambiance. The setting of Ebisugaoka is quite labyrinthine, comprising winding interconnected streets, dense, compact interiors, and numerous side paths. Admittedly, it's tricky to envision a depiction of this town that was once conventionally inhabited, regardless of sparse crowds, but that disconnect amplifies the surrealness of Hinako's dilemma. She's frequently traversing familiar ground, encountering meldings of comforting nostalgia or warped manifestations of those associated memories. Another aspect that impressed me was the utilization of the historical option for this setting. Given this title's placement in the 1960s, many facets of modern life that are now widely accepted were not at the time. The most apparent of these factors can be identified in Hinako's perceived irregular attitude toward practically everyone, especially when around her partner Shu. The latter is assumedly mature for his age, not seeing an issue with befriending someone of the opposite sex, which connects to how Hinako herself doesn't embrace the normalities of traditionalism in her era. Put simply, the choice of historical setting is splendid, being an integral yet not all-defining aspect with impact toward character motivations and beliefs. On the gameplay side, Silent Hill F boasts the typical typical elements of the survival horror experience, those being vulnerability, resource management, and environmental storytelling. Arguably, the standout part of this entry's design is its action game-like nature. Granted, it's fairly light and rarely required or demanded, merely being a choice in how you approach select situations. At first glance, its practical execution may teeter on the line of too much capability or self-defense. Thankfully, those worries are squashed exceedingly quickly once you realize what you're actually able to do as Hinako. Despite having practiced sports during her earlier school years, Hinako's movements, both in general navigation and combat, are sluggish and gradual. Running and attacking are both measured actions requiring commitment and swift on-the-fly planning. Her stamina gauge, depleted from performing dodges and sprints, is consumed quickly. Dodging, in particular, is likely the most important maneuver in your arsenal, as it's your central defensive action and it can get you out of harm's way in a mere second. Additionally, you can counter enemy attacks signaled by a particular visual cue unique to each foe, and it's a fitting struggle to figure out timings in the moment against new monsters, melding with the stress that survival horror can impart. Then there's the fact that the weapons Hinako picks up, consisting of steel pipes, baseball bats, and such, are breakable, somewhat harkening to the design methodology of firearm ammo in other entries. You can find toolkits to restore the durability of weapons, but it's worth considering whether using them for your current weapons is worthwhile or if letting one break is the wiser option. Sanity is another gauge that should always be considered, doubly so on the harder action difficulty, allowing this to deplete from psychological attacks and overt focusing, a mechanic that enables you to inflict major damage erodes health once it's gone. Therefore, items can be undeniably life-saving, making each pickup crucial. Consequently, I find Silent Hill to strike a mostly meticulous balance of traditional gameplay structuring and decision-making, while ensuring the tension of survival horror was retained across each distinct area. However, the reason I only say mostly is because the upgrade systems in place left me slightly perplexed, not out of complexity, but more so out of how jarring one aspect of it is in nature. To elaborate, you'll frequently find mini-shrines, which are checkpoints you can use to save and take advantage of other features. For instance, you can convert many of the healing items you have into a currency called Faith, serving two purposes in this menu. One is that Hinako can pray, using Faith to upgrade stats, including health and sanity, to a limited extent. On the other hand, Faith can be used to draw equipable items known as omamori, which grant passive buffs and abilities. As an observer of survival horror, I find tonal consistency to be the most important factor for immersion, and part of that feat involves cohesively integrating gameplay mechanics to align with the tenseness of the situation. As an example, Hinako's panic-induced, evidently hesitant swings with her weapons are ideal manifestations of that balance. Your limited carrying inventory is another strong actualization of this idea. It leans too far into other genre practices to really fit for me, even if it can be understood as a tie-in to the town's religious beliefs. Going back to the positive, another area where I found Silent Hill F to excel in is its area design. Exploration is meticulous, even if some locations can feel overly drawn out in the moment, with a few puzzle gimmicks being overly relied on. Thankfully, progression is always meaningful, thanks to a well-crafted map dictating mandatory stretches and side areas housing notable finds. In fact, going off the beaten path is usually worth your while, as you can find omamori, inventory upgrades, healing items, lore notes, and other items terrific for faith currency conversion. In essence, the levels are rarely bloated, and the numerous puzzles spread about are often fulfilling to figure out. While the game does provide and store hints in Hinako's journal, that design choice is more for convenience rather than artificially reducing difficulty. Solving these quandaries tends to require avoiding excessive focus on specific wording or the like. They can be deceptively simple in practice, which makes conclusions gratifying. On a tangentially related note, Silent Hill F has exceptional audio design. In addition to a masterful soundtrack befitting the tone and creeping, abnormal audio-induced dread signaling incoming danger, the voice performances shine. Save for a specific performance, the English dub is pretty spot on, bolstering the atmosphere, while the Japanese voices excel all around. Sublime art direction across scenery and grotesque creature design is another highlight, in character with the promotional message of "Find the beauty in terror." Frame rate on PS5 can occasionally dip in performance mode, though it was minor in my case. It may not mean too much from a newcomer not well acquainted with survival horror, but Silent Hill F is what I have honestly sought for the genre. Amidst expected implementations of sudden scares, the real, memorable jeopardy lurks in the fears you believe are seemingly beyond sight, not leaving me terrified in short bursts, but instead contemplative of what I've just witnessed. At its frayed heart, Silent Hill F utilizes its compact cast to embrace that psychological dread brilliantly, encompassing varied, bold topics that are not repressed or refrained. Strengthened by a healthy dose of replayability via multiple endings, as well as anxious gameplay systems, this entry should satisfy fan cravings for a new quality game in this franchise that was once long neglected. Noisy Pixel is giving Silent Hill F a 9 out of 10. Thanks for watching, and thanks to our supporters on Patreon for making our coverage possible. Go to patreon.com/noisypixel if you'd like to join them and receive our monthly digital magazine in addition to our eternal thanks. Noisy Pixel is an independent operation working hard to bring you news, reviews, previews, and more. Leave a comment below to start a conversation, come talk nerdy with us in our community Discord, and subscribe to keep up with all of our future content.
Noisy Pixel.